I'm going to talk about women driving in Saudi Arabia. There's a lot of myths that are spread about women driving in Saudi Arabia. My source is what Saudi Arabian women have said, and about things that are facts, provable facts. If your source is the American media or what people believe or what people say, it's all nonsense. What they're saying is the opposite of the truth. I'm going to go through some facts about women driving in Saudi Arabia. Number one, Saudi Arabia is the most dangerous country in the world to drive in. They have the highest car accidents of any country in the world. It's the most dangerous city. You can look on YouTube and look at Saudi Arabia driving, and you'll see why. People do absolutely crazy things driving in Saudi Arabia. They will spin the cars around. They do what's called drifting. They will put the car on two wheels, and they'll get out the door and they'll change the tire. They do these things. And it's one after another. You see people on the side of the road watching, a crowd of people watching people doing all sorts of stunts with a video camera. One car goes by, a minute later, another car comes spinning around, and a minute later, another car comes spinning around, a minute later, another car comes spinning, and it goes on. And it's not separate videos. It's one video. Over the course of 10 minutes, you might see 10 cars crazy driving going down the street. And occasionally they do have accidents. I think I've seen one accident video and 100 non-accident video. They're very good drivers, but they drive like crazy. And they do it in the cities. They don't just do it outside. They do the crazy parking where they park into the spaces and they drift, making a turn around the corner, with the back of the car drifting around, and they go like this and like this and like this, and they get out of the car with their sandals on and like they're skating, and they tie ropes and they're skating behind the cars. They're crazy. Fact: most car owners in Saudi Arabia are women. Women are more likely to own a car in Saudi Arabia than a man. Fact: there is no such thing that women are not allowed to drive in Saudi Arabia as a whole. You will see people say, well, you'll see some people say women can't drive in Saudi Arabia, and then you'll see people who have more information, who are more informed, who will say women cannot drive in Saudi Arabia except outside the cities and in the south. Then you'll see the truth. Women in the south are accepted as drivers. They drive regularly. Women outside the cities drive regularly. Inside the cities in the north, women don't like to drive inside those cities. And it's their own beliefs. They're not denied the right to drive. I'm going to explain to you why. First of all, has never been a law denying a woman the right to drive in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia does not have a penal code. There's no law about littering. There's no law about killing people. There's no law about robbing people. There's no law about what side of the road you drive on. There's no penal code. That's what penal code is. Committing crimes doesn't exist in Saudi Arabia. It's a foreign concept to Americans and Westerners, because the law is Sharia law. The law is Islam. When you go to court, the judge doesn't use a penal code to determine if you broke the law. He uses Islamic law, the Quran. And he interprets the Quran and decides if you violated the Quran. If driving is not mentioned in the Quran, which it isn't, then he has to decide, how is he going to decide if what you did was a crime or not? There is nothing in the Quran that says that women cannot drive. Does not exist. Women are not prohibited from driving in Saudi Arabia. They regularly drive, although they avoid driving in the cities in the north. Okay, so now people say, well, there's an edict that says that women can't drive. No, there isn't. There's no such thing as an edict that says that a woman cannot drive in Saudi Arabia. Only an uneducated, ignorant Westerner or feminist believes that there's an edict that says that women cannot drive. There are edicts that say that women should not drive. The problem with this, there's two problems. Number one is that edicts are not law. Judges do not use edicts to cite whether or not a woman can drive or not, or whether or not a person has rights. A person who creates an edict has no legal power whatsoever. If a pastor says, let's go burn the Quran or let's go burn Bibles, there's been pastors who've made comments about abortion, people shouldn't have abortions, and sometimes it's in the news in the United States. And you're going to notice that people ignore what the pastor says. It's the same in Saudi Arabia. Religious leaders make edicts, which is the same as a Christian pastor making a statement about, for example, abortion. No one is under any obligation to follow anything that that person says. He has the same power as a religious priest or pastor in the United States. He has no power whatsoever. He's only stating his opinion based on what he interpreted in the Islamic law. No one may even hear what he says. Chances are the federal government doesn't care what he says. It's probably not printed in the newspapers or in the media. And what Saudi Arabian women have said about edicts is that they don't care about edicts. And the word that I saw, what I read, what the woman wrote was, nobody cares about what some crazy edict, about some crazy guy who makes an edict. That's what they said. They don't care. They're not slaves to what an Islamic leader says. These Islamic leaders are nobodies. Now, the second reason why is, okay, first of all, I want to say that when they give an edict, they'll always say the same thing. Women shouldn't drive because it's not safe. They might get into a car accident. That's what they say. They're talking about safety. They're giving an edict about a woman's safety, and it's going to be because they probably heard about a woman getting in a car accident. So the leader will say, oh, you know, women shouldn't drive. It's dangerous. They could get injured in a car accident. They don't just randomly go around saying, oh, women shouldn't drive. They say it because they have a reason. Something triggered them saying that. For every edict that says a woman shouldn't drive, there's another Islamic leader who says an edict that says that women should drive. And guess what they say? They say that women should drive because it's safer for women to drive. It's more dangerous for them to travel when they're not in a car. And the example that I read was an edict that said it's safer for a woman to drive than to ride on a donkey, because if she gets into an accident with a car, she'll be safer inside the car than riding on a donkey. That was exactly what the edict said. So the problem that we have is that the Western media does not report on all the edicts that say that women should drive. They just ignore it. It's never printed in the Western media. You know, they pick and choose the evidence. So then there's the issue, well, women can't buy a car because they have a guardian. Well, guess what? Saudi Arabian women like the fact that they have a guardian. The guardian takes 100% responsibility for the woman's life. Now, what does that mean? He takes financial responsibility. He manages all of her debts. She doesn't have to buy anything. She doesn't have to pay for anything. She has no responsibility. She has no bad credit. She doesn't owe anybody any money. She doesn't have to take the car in for repairs. She doesn't have to pay the insurance. One of the women that I read said, all I did was tell my father I want a new car, and he came back and handed me the keys. And she said she likes it that way. She didn't have to go shopping, the headaches of shopping, haggling for a car, picking what car to get, and I'm sure she got a nice car. They're taken care of. They like it that way. American women don't understand this. They understand it when they're under the age of 18 and their father buys them everything. Now, the problem comes in is because some Saudi Arabian women do not have a father because their father died. I don't think the lifespan is that long in Saudi Arabia. And these women do not have a brother or a husband. So they have no male guardian. So when they go to the banks ask for a male guardian or they won't open the bank account. And saying, well, I don't have a male guardian, doesn't convince the banks. And I don't believe it's Saudi Arabian law that requires them to have a male guardian. It's a rule that the banks have or that the car dealerships have because they want to know that a competent person is going to take care of this. They know that the men are the ones that work and the men have the money and the men are the ones that take responsibility and the men take care of their families and the man is going to be responsible. There's a presumption that the woman is not going to do all those things. So that's why they don't trust the woman. It's like having no credit. So there are some women who are disadvantaged because they don't have a male guardian. The ones that do have a male guardian, I'm sure that there's some that have bad male guardians, but most of them are happy with the system. It's just like being under the age of 18 and your father pays for everything for you. Your parents may have paid for you to go to college, may have bought you your first car, may have given you an allowance, they certainly bought you your clothes and gave you a room to live in. You know, those people are being taken care of and they like that system. And if you listen to what Saudi Arabian women say about the place where they live, they like where they live. They like the guardian system. There have been surveys done of Saudi Arabian women where they ask them about the right to drive. All the surveys that I've read that were done by Saudi Arabians, the ones that are done by Americans always say, yeah, we want the right to drive. You know, but the ones that the Saudi Arabians conduct say that these women don't want the right to drive. They don't want to drive. But what's more important is they don't want other Saudi Arabian women to drive. That is what the problem is. They could care less if they drive. They want to prevent other women from driving because they believe that the right to drive gives a woman independence and mobility and increases the chance that she will meet another man, which means that that woman will cheat with her husband. She doesn't want her husband to cheat on her, so she doesn't want another woman to have the right to drive. This is what Saudi Arabian women believe, and this is what they say. There are Saudi Arabian women that say, I would like the right to drive only if I have a road that's dedicated for me that men cannot drive on. This is what they say. And there are the men and women cannot socialize easily in Saudi Arabia. Dating is difficult. There's no dating period. You marry your cousin to keep wealth in the family. There's no socializing. They do date, but they can't talk about it or be open about it. When you see people walking down the street, you don't know if they're married or not. You can research this. Research Saudi Arabian dating, and they will tell you, yes, we do date. We just aren't open about it. When you walk down the street, people don't know if you're married or not. There's no religious police. It's absolute nonsense. If you read what Saudi Arabian women say, they say that the religious police are not police. They cannot arrest you. They cannot detain you. They cannot fine you. They can only advise you of Islamic law. Everybody hates them. They get chased out all the time by groups of people who say, get out of here. We don't care about what you have to say. And if you live in Saudi Arabia, months will go by or years will go by. You will never see the religious police. It's very rare that you have an interaction with them. And seeing them doesn't mean having an interaction with them. So what Saudi Arabian men cannot socialize easily with Saudi Arabian women. So what they believe is that having a car accident with a woman gives them an opportunity to meet a woman. And you will see Saudi Arabian men saying that their plan to meet a woman is to have a car accident with her. And the women know this. And they talk about, I don't want to have a car accident with a man. That's what they say. Okay, so there is an issue where Saudi Arabian women have problems getting driver's licenses. When you hear, oh, police arrested a woman, the Western media lies. If you read these cases and you go to the facts, they don't arrest women. They detain them. They detain them. They make them sign a piece of paper saying they're not going to drive again. They detain them not for driving. The Western media will say she was detained for driving. Not true. These women are never cited for driving. They're cited for not having a driver's license. Because many Saudi Arabian women do not have a driver's license, yet they try to drive. That's where the problem is. Anyone who tells you, all this nonsense about Saudi Arabian women being prohibited from driving, not being allowed. It's all nonsense. The fact is that they do not have driver's licenses, which does cause problems. So what happens is Saudi Arabian women have trouble getting driver's licenses. I don't know if it's across the board, every Saudi Arabian woman cannot get a driver's license, but there have been women who have gone and tried to get a driver's license and been denied it. It might be a journalist. Journalists will pay Saudi Arabian women to go and try and get in trouble with the law so they can write a story about it. So they might have been doing entrapment, trying to get the woman rejected. I'll explain this further. But we don't know. So my theory was, well, if there's driving schools for women in Saudi Arabia, then women have the right to drive. And I never found a Saudi Arabian driving school, but then again, I don't know Arabic. I only speak English. However, what I do find is that there are definitely people searching for driving schools for women in Saudi Arabia. So that's a fact that I proved. Because you can go and look up search data, or you can look at the file completion. If you start typing those words, you're going to see that people have been searching for female driving schools, which must assume that those people believe that they're going to be a driver. So now you've got women who get detained, and journalists hire women because they want a news story. They want to get in the news. They want to make a name for themselves, or they want to get donations for their cause or something, like for some feminist cause or whatever. So they pay Saudi Arabian women to drive, and they try to get the police to pull them over. What happens is the police don't pull them over. So they're driving around and they don't get pulled over, so they have to cause a fight. They got to instigate the police. So what they do is they find where the police are, which is at the border, where they know they're going to get stopped. At the border, everybody gets stopped, and the journalists will ride with a Saudi Arabian woman who they're paying. They don't do it for free, and they get stopped at the border, and they be difficult, and they try to pick a fight with the police, and the police stop them and investigate them and cite them and say, okay, we're going to cite you for driving without a driver's license, because they will not have a driver's license. Or maybe there was a case with a woman who did, but it was a Kuwaiti driver's license or something like that. And the journalist was riding with her. What does that tell you when the journalist is riding with the woman and she's at the border and she doesn't have her driver's license with her and the police stop her? I mean, come on. It's obviously a setup because they're trying to make a news story. So that happens. So the other thing I wanted to say, it shows you how crazy people are and how easy it is to disprove Western media. There was a news story where it says Saudi women are now allowed to ride bikes in parks in Saudi Arabia. And it was fake news. So this makes absolutely no sense. Well, who's going to pass a law saying, okay, Saudi Arabian women are now permitted to ride their bicycles in Saudi Arabia? And I know there's no penal code. It's not true. So I said, okay, what happened? I read the story, and what the story said was that a woman was riding her bike in a park in a city in Saudi Arabia, and a police officer said, oh yeah, you can ride your bike here. And it was carried in a newspaper, I believe. It was in a Saudi Arabian newspaper. The story about a woman riding her bike in a park, and the police officer told her that, yes, you can ride your bike in this park. So this became Americanized, and it was Saudi Arabian women now have the right to ride bikes in the park. The police officer did not grant her that right. Second of all, this was a local matter, and I looked up the newspaper and the city that it was in and how big the city was, and it wasn't even like 2% of the population of Saudi Arabia. So it wasn't a national news story. It was a local news story, and the police didn't have the power to grant her that right. It's misrepresented by the Western media. There's a lot of lies about Saudi Arabian culture, like the hijab and things like that. They're lying. Americans are lying about this. These women are not being forced to wear the hijab. They voluntarily do so, and you know this because the women say that they voluntarily do so. When I was younger, one day I said, I'm going to go to Google image search and search for Muslim women, and I saw thousands of photos of women showing their hair, not wearing the hijab. It's like, that's not true. They can show their hair. It's not true. They're not forced to do this. It's a custom. It's a culture. They voluntarily do it. People will complain if they don't do it, but they're not forced to do it. Okay, so this was about driving. Make your own decision. Don't believe a news article. When you read something in the American news, they put a spin on it. Look at what the Saudi Arabian women say and what the Saudi Arabian men say. The king said, before he died, he said, oh yeah, I believe that women should have the right to drive. He literally said that, but he didn't declare it. He just said that it was his belief. And then he died, and then I believe that his son became king, and his son said, okay, finally, yes, women drive. And he declared it as fact. And then people started saying, now women have the right to drive. No, it wasn't true. They always had the right to drive. But because it was a cultural thing, some people needed to hear the king say it, to reaffirm it. Okay, so I'm going to get back to the judges. The judges ultimately decide. The king doesn't decide the driving infractions. The judges do. And it's Islamic law that determines it. And there's no such thing as case law. In the United States, if a woman has a driving infraction and a judge makes a determination that what she did was legal, and another woman does the same thing, they'll say it's already been decided, this other judge said it was legal, so it's legal for her too. Okay, said and done. Doesn't work like that in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, every judge can make any decision he wants based on his own understanding of Islamic law. So one woman can make an infraction that is legal, and another woman can do the same exact thing, and the judge can say that it's illegal, and he doesn't have to refer to what any other judge has ever said, and he can make different rules for different people, for different cases. He can do whatever he wants. Now I'm going to get back to the edicts, the cleric that makes the edict. The other thing about Islam is that there's no hierarchy like Christianity. We have a pope and cardinals and priests. There's a hierarchy, and they don't self-declare themselves as being a cardinal or a pope. They have to be elected or nominated or appointed or hired by the community. Doesn't work that way in Islam. In Islam, anybody can be a religious leader. You can self-declare yourself as a religious leader. All you got to do is study Islamic law and self-declare yourself a religious leader, and you are a cleric. Anybody can be a cleric. There is not an authoritative position to make an edict. There's no authority behind a cleric's edict. Okay, so I think that I've covered everything. Post your comments below.